Okay. So, happy Tuesday. It's hard to believe that March is pretty much out of here. And we're going to hopefully move on to spring very soon, even though we've been teased. It seems like every other day we get a tease of spring. So, with March being Women's History Month, we are focusing on a lot of topics that impact women. And so we're still going to talk about career. How many of you all have heard, whether you do a raise of hand on the teams, have heard of the term growth mindset? So I'll just wait to see if there's any show of hands. Okay. See a couple. Okay. All right. Awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what does that mean? Because growth mindset is not necessarily a new term, but it is a great mindset to have. So we'll talk a little bit about how can you identify growth mindset and how it can kind of help transform yourself and talk about some actions on how you can build a growth mindset, which this topic is going to be very important as we do have Sheena returning back and talk about owning your career. You want to make sure that you have a growth mindset. So first, I will go ahead and ask um, if you thought about growth mindset, we're going to do a little physical exercise. And so since you don't have your cameras on, I can't see you with what you're doing, but it's okay. But I want you to stop for a second. If you're driving, don't do this while you're driving. But where you're at right now, go ahead and cross your arms like you normally would cross your arms. So if you could see me, it's kind of like, however you would cross your arms. So just take a second to do that. All right. Now I'd like you to switch how you have your arms laid across each other. How did that feel? And this time you can let your mic off. Did anybody do it?
Nothing usual, that's something you try to do different.
Felt a little awkward um, at first. Did you have to stop for a second and really think about how do I do that? Or did you naturally go back to how you normally cross your arms? So it's a stretch, right? When you're learning something different. Now, where you're at, if you're at a desk or whatever, go ahead and take a piece of paper out and go ahead and write your name with your normal writing hand. Chris, this is pretty easy. I know how to write my name, right? And you could probably recognize your signature. So now what I'd like for you to do is take your pen or pencil and then, or if you're air write it, use your other hand and try to write your first name. How did that feel?
I wish I was ambidextrous.
Yeah, everybody is not ambidextrous, right? But sometimes we're faced in certain circumstances where we have to learn to do something new. Um, And some people, they don't have an option, right? So it's either you learn to do something new or you just don't do it at all. And how do you limit your life if you just completely just say, no, I'm not going to do that? So that was a very simple exercise. What I'm going to do is play a couple minutes of a video and have you watch that. And then we're going to pause the video and then we're going to talk for a little bit. Is that okay? Give me a thumbs up if that's okay. All right. Give me just a second here and let me know if you can see my screen. Okay. All right. Do you have sound?
Our brains develop rapidly in early childhood as we experience new things. They can continue to grow throughout our lifetimes as our brains form new connections and establish new thought patterns. A growth mindset is the belief that a person can increase performance with intentional practice and effort. Its opposite, the fixed mindset, is the belief that a person is stuck with the talent and abilities they have. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nash, a leadership consultant and speaker and author of the book Be Human, Lead Human. One thing I know for sure is that as an entrepreneur, a fixed mindset is the most direct route to failure. If you didn't pivot your business during COVID, you likely lost all of your customers, your revenue sources, and had to shut down. But this advice is not just limited to entrepreneurs, it applies to all areas of your life. To help bring this course content to life, I've infused real world stories throughout. Developing a growth mindset helps you see the world through the lens of what could be rather than what can't be. If you struggle with establishing new thought patterns, this course is meant for you. Use these tools to identify fixed mindset thinking. Learn techniques to infuse your life with positivity and develop your growth mindset. In this course, you'll learn how a growth mindset can improve your performance at work. You'll discover how to build your skills in this area and how to limit fixed mindset thinking. Finally, you'll learn how to use resilience techniques to overcome obstacles and challenges.
Your outlook on life and the way your career progresses are inextricably linked. In fact, two workers in the same situation can achieve different levels of success based on their mindsets. Upon receiving constructive criticism from a manager, one worker becomes despondent and unproductive. The other worker uses the feedback to improve, resulting in a promotion. The difference between these two employees is that one believed they could improve. This belief is called a growth mindset. If you don't believe you can grow and change, and instead display a fixed mindset, you may miss opportunities to advance your skills and move toward your goals. There are many ways a growth mindset can help you transform yourself. The first way a growth mindset can help you transform is that it gives you a more positive viewpoint, filled with possibilities. Positive thinking can seem like an abstract concept, but it has real benefits. When faced with an opportunity, such as the chance to lead a team, having an optimistic outlook, focusing on what could go right rather than what could go wrong, increases the likelihood you'll seize the opportunity and act. A person with a growth mindset believes that talents and intelligence levels can be improved with effort. A person with this outlook is more likely to learn new things and set stretch goals for themselves. It's easy to think up worst-case scenarios and become so fearful of these potential negative outcomes that you don't even start to do something. A person with a growth mindset can work through these fears because they know that even if something goes wrong, they'll learn a valuable lesson. While a person with a fixed mindset sees themselves as a victim of the situation, a person who's confident they can improve and grow sees themselves as an active participant in the final result. The next way a mindset of growth and learning can transform you is by facilitating greater achievement. You can accomplish more and increase your happiness when you're confident you can meet your goals. This is true in both personal and professional life. People with a fixed mindset spend their time trying to show that they're smart and capable. While proving what you're currently capable of is appropriate in some situations, it doesn't often contribute to self-betterment. On the other hand, people with a growth mindset are constantly growing their intelligence and improving their skills. They solve more problems too. That's because workers with a fixed mindset point out a problem, but don't believe they're smart enough to handle it. They believe they should wait for someone else to do the job. Workers with a growth mindset who see the same problem believe they can learn the skill or knowledge needed to tackle it and find a solution. Workers who believe in their abilities tend to be more effective and efficient. Their proactive problem solving and can do attitude gets them noticed by management, so they're more likely to be assigned to high profile tasks or considered for promotions. Another way a growth mindset can transform you is by enabling flexibility in the face of adversity and change. If you don't think you can improve upon your natural talents, changes to your responsibilities at work can be daunting. Workers with a growth mindset are ready to learn new skills or gain new knowledge when the company or their role in it has to adapt. The ability to be flexible is crucial when facing difficulty or unexpected change. When the time honored, well honed way of doing something no longer works, employees need to be able to pivot quickly. People with a growth mindset get through challenging times with less stress and sometimes even come out feeling better about themselves. Think about a time you developed a new skill or competency at work. How did you feel about yourself and your work once you noticed your progress? A growth mindset can be the difference between achieving a goal and stopping before you start. The belief that you can grow and change leads to new accomplishments and skills that'll make you stand out at work.
Okay, so we're going to pause there for a second. So hopefully that gave more of an explanation of growth mindset. I would like for you to take a moment, and this is a good time if you're able to take your mic off of mute, to think about, for example, some companies, businesses that you felt had more of a growth mindset. So, does anybody have a company or a business they felt like they might have had a growth mindset? And I have an example to get us kicked off with conversation. So, well, let me ask this question before we think about a company who has a growth mindset. Does anybody remember Blockbuster? Blockbuster Video.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody still have the card? I do. I don't know why. I just thought it'd be a great collector's item, but I still have my card. All right. Remember how, for those who remember Blockbuster Video, big deal, going there, what was it, Friday night, got done with work, got done with school. Oh, we're going to go ahead and pick out a video. That was a big deal. Blockbuster was everywhere, right? Does anybody remember Redbox?
Yes.
Yes, I think they're
Yeah,
still around.
there's probably still a couple of them around doing the DVD rentals,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So kind of like the same thing. Redbox pretty much was started by who? Netflix, or they kind of was the Redbox piece. Um, Now, how many blockbusters are still around?
I think none. The one that was up in the northern part of the country, I think, closed during the pandemic.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
before.
I think there was one that was still hanging around to try to keep it open. The crazy thing is now I think there was even a documentary on Netflix about Blockbuster, the last Blockbuster. So when you think about Netflix, do you think that they had a growth mindset? Because they both started off renting videos.
Yes.
Yeah, because they could have still been in the red box era, but leadership at that time began to see changes with the consumer, right? And how do they go ahead and move with the consumer to make those changes? Now you have Netflix creating content. They're just not renting out like they did with the Red Box. They're creating content. And Blockbuster has been left behind from that. There's a lot of businesses that you can think about. Kodak. for example, with the remember the digital cameras, but they really didn't transform when everyone started getting cell phones. So they're not as relevant like how they used to be. Can you think about famous people who you think may have a growth mindset? This is where I need someone to throw out a name.
Tom Cruise or Paul Newman or
Oh, Tom Cruise. Why would you say Tom Cruise?
just because he has found his style of movie, and it just there's always one coming out.
Yeah, yeah. What was that? Somebody said something? Okay, maybe it was just some background noise. But yeah, sometimes you don't know if he's,
Kevin
doing
Hart.
Kevin Hart. That's a good one because is he just a stand-up comedian?
No, he's an actor too.
He's an actor. I think he started his own digital platform for comedy. Um, he also has did a talk show, I think, on
He has a clothing line. He
the
has a liquor. He has a talk show.
right.
Um, he has, like you say, he's in movies and he's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, he didn't just limit himself to just doing stand up. Okay, so those were some great examples from Tom Cruise, Kevin Hart. We talked a little bit about Netflix and Blockbuster. Now, can you think of individuals that you know that have a growth mindset? And what made me think a little bit was the woman at the beginning, she talked about how when the pandemic was around, a lot of businesses, they had to pivot and rethink of different things. There were definitely individuals that during that time frame, I would say that they might have had a growth mindset. There was a lot of people that all of a sudden they started learning how to make bread or they started to learn how to garden. They learned how to do different recipes. So they went beyond their circumstance and they still decided to learn different things. There may be certain individuals that you know in your own circles. Sometimes you may be amazed at how many things or how much talent these individuals have from doing so many different things. Or maybe that person is you. Does anyone have an example of someone that they know that they've done so many different things or they're talented in so many different ways? And why would you think that they have a growth mindset? How about Elizabeth? Can you think of anyone?
Yeah, I can think of a lot of people. I mean, there's just been a ton of people, as you've mentioned, that like throughout COVID have been resilient and they've managed to change their work schedules, their
Hmm.
um, just what they're used to. I think it kind of forced everyone to have a growth. It was either you have a growth mindset or you, I don't know, I don't know you.
For some, it still might have been difficult, right? To kind of almost
Right?
like that
Yeah.
half glass, the glass is half full or half empty kind of attitude. So they tend to have certain characteristics about being a little bit more optimistic. When you think about also people at work, I think about, first learning about Microsoft Office, years ago. I don't want to date myself, but it was, it was a big deal to learn that huge platform and think about how much Microsoft has changed now and how we use it. And sometimes you may not get all of the skills that you may need at your job on how to excel at it, no pun intended. You have some people that go the extra mile. They will go to YouTube University and look up different tips and how to do things. I would say that's a growth mindset because they don't want to limit their learning. So it's definitely a way on how not to just think about from an entertainment or relaxation um, mindset. It's really about how do you evolve it around even with your work, more so, right? And have more enjoyable life. We're going to watch another video and then we're going to talk a little bit more. It's still on growth mindset. This video would be about 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to come back and connect and talk. Okay? All right, let me start to share. Let me make sure I got my sound on. Okay.
Cultivating a growth mindset is a valuable skill. It's not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. It must be built through practice and maintained with regular use. With determination and effort, anyone can develop this positive outlook. There are many actions you can take to help build a growth mindset. The first action is to take ownership of your own growth. No one can make you learn and grow if you don't want to. If you wait for someone else to tell you how to change for the better, valuable opportunities may pass you by. Taking initiative for improving yourself and your work gives you control of your career and greater overall satisfaction in the workplace. Start taking ownership by first identifying areas where you've grown complacent. Maybe you haven't been applying to interesting in-company openings that would offer a higher salary and challenge level because you're afraid to fail. A good enough is good enough attitude indicates a fixed mindset and should be avoided. To overcome this kind of thinking and embrace a growth mindset, brainstorm ways you can take bold action and calculated risks. For example, proposing a cross-departmental project that would allow you to learn new skills. Figure out what's within your control and act accordingly. Feeling like you have influence over the outcome of an event means you're more likely to get involved and take charge. Finally, focus on enjoying the journey of learning rather than achieving a specific result. Putting your time and energy into the learning process can help you enjoy your work more and make you more enthusiastic about discovering new things. A second action to build your growth mindset is to look for opportunities. Start by getting information on how you can grow. Ask a manager, mentor, or a trusted colleague for feedback on your performance. When you know where you want to improve, start practicing. Take on a stretch assignment. Sign up for additional training. Get experience by offering to work on a project. When looking for development opportunities, get out of your comfort zone. Growth requires some vulnerability and risk. Try to embrace the fact that maybe you aren't good at something yet, but you can be, and be open to improving your performance through hard work and determination. Finally, seek out diverse perspectives. People different from you will have information and skills that you don't possess. They can offer fresh viewpoints to consider and new approaches to try.
The key to building a growth mindset is to believe that you are capable of learning and growing. When I'm talking with clients, I ask them to think about how they can think about things differently in their business. What might they look at and perceive in one way, when if they looked at it in a different way, it could lead them to different opportunities and new doors that might open. That's an example of a growth mindset. One of my clients asks for feedback regularly from the stakeholders, and he asks them two specific questions. He asks them to tell him what has he done this month that has been effective, and then he asks them for one suggestion on what he can do differently going forward to be a more effective leader. Developing a growth mindset is simple, but it's not easy. It takes intention and effort and a dedication to thinking about things differently. People often struggle with a growth mindset because it may not be what we were brought up to believe. It may not be the things that people around us told us. You have to consider what's right for you as opposed to maybe what's right for everyone else. Give it a try and see how you can develop a growth mindset by thinking differently.
The last action to increase your growth mindset is to learn from everything. Learn from all your experiences. One way to learn from your experiences is to reflect on them. Reflecting involves taking dedicated time after an experience to think, talk, or write about what happened and how it turned out. It could be one of your accounts suddenly leaving to work with a competitor, or a customer service interaction that wasn't successfully resolved. Try to be objective, accurate, and unbiased. Identify performance gaps or areas where your performance fell short of your goals. Look closely at any mistakes that occurred and plan how you'll avoid them next time. In addition, be sure to congratulate yourself for any advances you've made in skill or knowledge. Remember, learning is possible from both your successes and failures. Failure can be a valuable lesson in how to improve, although it can be challenging to learn while feeling angry, scared, or sad. Success can be more motivational and can show you what techniques to repeat. Learning from what went well can serve as a guide for the future, without the negative feelings that failure can bring. Think about a recent failure at work and what you learned from it. How did it make you feel? What actions did it prompt you to take? Building your growth mindset can be challenging, sometimes emotional work. Those willing to put in the time and effort should see their skills in this area improve quickly.
Stop sharing. Okay, so they mentioned a lot of different things. And I think one of the things that we need to talk about also is how do you identify fixed mindset thinking? Because we can probably recognize it in others, but a lot of times it's how do we identify it with ourselves? So here's a couple of behaviors that you want to keep in mind. One, you want to look for areas in which you're prone to fixed mindset thinking. For some, it could be learning brand new technology and not willing to learn about the new technology, for an example. So sometimes you have to reflect and think about some of those things that you already have a fixed mindset on. You want to watch out for an attitude that indicates abilities or intelligence cannot improve. One of the biggest things that we can do is make sure that we don't use the word can't. I can't do that, or not. I'm not talented enough. Or it can also go the opposite way, believing that you're already perfect too. So just make sure to watch out for those things. And once you've identified those areas, you want to look into changing it. When you shift from negative to positive thinking, focus on changes you can make for the better. A lot of times we got to make sure that we're setting a realistic goal. And once the goal is achieved, how do you keep increasing your challenge level? And that's with anything, right? Even if it's as simple as a hobby. When I was talking with this one woman, and she said she was learning how to knit. So she didn't stop at one stitch. There was another woman who got into cake decorating. And so when she got started with one thing, she kept improving her skills, and now she makes these elaborate cakes. It's the same thing with anything that we learn at work. Is how do we keep stretching ourselves? And then for women particular, we need to silence our inner critic. We judge ourselves more harshly than what a lot of other people would even think about saying to us. And it's hard to silence that inner critic. So you want to replace negative thoughts with statements that affirm your abilities and make a thought more positive by adding yet. I don't know how to do this yet, right? A lot of times we just say, I don't know how to do it. And then we just end it right there. That's the end of the statement. But when you start practicing adding yet to it, you've opened up now the possibilities for growth. You definitely want to balance your attitudes and information around you. And, how do you choose to make sure you have optimistic messages around you? Um, there's people that put affirmation statements somewhere around their house, or they put them on things around at work, or they listen to affirmation messages, or they receive affirmation messages. Words are powerful. Making sure you're surrounding yourself with optimistic messages. Um, Along with this, we need to make sure that we get comfortable with setbacks and ambiguity and uncertainty. There's times when people find it very difficult to accept a setback. Um, Nelson Mandela had once said, he said, I either win or I learn. And you can use failure as a way of learning how to improve or what not to do. So we need to get uncomfortable with those, continue to work in our uncomfortable situations. Um, we can practice doing small or unimportant tasks while feeling fearful or anxious. And when we face a setback, focus on how we can adapt. We talked a little bit about the pandemic, and everybody was in that space. But there's some individuals, whether it might have been yourself or other people that you know, that they didn't look at it as a complete negative. Um, they were able to adapt to the situation a little bit more. Um, Make sure not to let the setback stop you. Um, it's a chapter, it's not the story. So don't let it completely stop you from doing what you want to do. And then here's one thing that we can do, and is to design our days to include learning something new. Just take one brief moment to deliberately set up some time to learn in our day. Avoid passively waiting for opportunities. Find new things that you can learn in your profession or industry, and then put time in to learn on your schedule and try to stick to it. So hopefully those were some tips that were pretty pretty helpful. Um, I'm gonna pause right there. Any thoughts on from the video or what was just shared? Elena, you had a thought?
Just I can hear it, I can think it. It's the implementation from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is that okay? I know the words I'm using are not the correct, or it's not beneficial, but it's getting out of that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
always my stumbling block of
And are you talking about the words using the
just
words
life.
not and yet?
Correct.
Yes. I know it that takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice, right? And sometimes we have to write those things down. I know it seems very elementary, but sometimes when we write things down, they tend to stick a little bit more. And then also having an accountability partner. Um, when you're in groups, for
Mhm.
example, right? And you may have that person that will look at you and say, did you realize you just said that you can't do something, or you're not going to do something, or I'm not going to learn that? So having an accountability partner helps in that space as well. So thanks for sharing that, Elena.
Well,
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Elena.
Nope, was just agreeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then the thing with learning, and with having all these devices on social media, sometimes it can be a time absorber, right, when we don't recognize it. But there are some that are very good at learning when it comes to different tools that we may use, whether it's on the internet or any of our devices. Learning different ways. You got to let your brain relax a little bit too, right? So then you can think more about what you are doing or what you're not doing, or what do you want to improve. You definitely have to have space to think. But learning, it never stops, right? Whether it's something personal or whether it's something at work, right? So I'm going to play this one more video, and it's going to be about challenging the fixed mindset. So we kind of covered some topics, but we're gonna watch the video.
Most people have some areas of their lives where fixed mindset thinking weighs them down or holds them back. Challenging these unhelpful thoughts is critical to making progress toward your goals. When you shift your thinking toward growth, you increase your productivity, innovation, and positive outcomes. To tap into these benefits, use techniques to challenge fixed mindset thinking. The first technique is to identify fixed mindset thoughts from both yourself and others. There may be certain areas in your life in which you're more prone to fixed mindset thinking. For example, if you believe your technology skills are weak, you might avoid using a new computer program or offering an opinion on an upcoming IT initiative. Watch out for any attitude that indicates your abilities or intelligence cannot improve, even with practice and experience. A person with a fixed mindset is likely to say things like, "I can't do that," or "I'm not talented enough." Try to eliminate these kinds of expressions. Conversely, believing you're already perfect is also an example of fixed thinking. Once you notice a non-growth outlook, you can work to change it. Another technique to challenge a fixed mindset is to shift from negative to positive thinking. Choose to focus on changes you can make for the better, rather than those with lesser impact, and make sure they're achievable. To do this, set a realistic goal for improving. When you meet the goal, increase your challenge level. Also, silence your inner critic. Allowing negative thoughts to go unchecked can cause a stress response that, at its most extreme, shuts down rational thinking. Instead, replace negative thoughts with statements that affirm your abilities. One easy way to make a thought more positive is to add "yet" to the end of it, as in, "I can't work this program yet." Make a point to balance the attitudes and information you encounter around you. While some stress and negativity are normal in any workplace, you can choose to absorb optimistic messages too. Adding more positive information can increase your motivation and energy level. The third technique is to get comfortable with setbacks, ambiguity, and uncertainty. These are all part of the learning and growth process. It's normal for fear to cause a strong reaction in our bodies and brains. Uncertainty often keeps people from trying something new or pursuing their goals. However, you need to learn to continue your work in uncomfortable situations and keep moving forward. Practice by doing small things that make you slightly fearful, anxious, or uncomfortable each day. For example, taking a new path to work, or politely disagreeing with a coworker. Completing less important tasks while feeling discomfort will teach you that you can persevere and succeed despite this feeling. When you face a setback, focus on how you can adapt or change to overcome it. Identify future situations where you can use the lessons you've learned to achieve better outcomes. Finally, make sure not to let the setback stop you. Adjust your plan, then keep trying. The final technique is to design your day to include learning something new. Being able to quickly adjust to new information and processes, continuously develop and learn new skills, and even retrain and change course completely are critical skills in today's rapidly changing world. To facilitate this mindset, deliberately build time into your day for learning. Avoid passively waiting for opportunities to come your way. Instead, actively seek them out. There are new things to learn in every profession and industry. A manager could ask employees for feedback on their communication style. A salesperson could study their competitor's most successful sales pitch and learn to implement a similar technique. Once you've decided what you'd like to learn, put time in your schedule for it each day and stick to it.
Marianne is a current client of mine, and one of her goals is to improve her communication. And Marianne has a certain pattern to her language that I've observed when we have our coaching calls. And I said, well, have you noticed that when you speak, you use a lot of language that includes not, like I don't, or I can't, or I won't. And I said, what do you think that means? And she looked at me and said, well, I wasn't aware that I was doing that. And so we talked about this concept of fixed mindset, where you don't believe that you can grow and evolve and that things are static and that they will stay that way. Marianne and I talked about several ways that she could work to change her mindset from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. One way we discussed was for Marianne to be more aware of when she was using negative language in her communication. So, using that growth mindset approach to not only improving her communication, but improving her performance and keeping an open mind about the different possibilities that may come her way.
Where and when have you noticed fixed mindset thinking in yourself or your team? How did it hold you back? Believing you can't improve can be a barrier to reaching your goals. You can challenge fixed thinking by supporting and rewarding continuous learning and improvement as opposed to just achievement.
Okay, so that kind of recapped a lot what we had just talked about um, a few moments ago. And one of the things that, as we are developing our growth mindset, is getting feedback. Um, Feedback is a gift, right? Sometimes we get feedback as a scheduled feedback, whether you have a one-with-one or you have a performance review. But sometimes we need other feedback to get to us so then that we can improve, whether more often or at the right time. And we need to be at the right time to receive it as well. So feedback is important with growth mindset. When you think about um, in your younger days and you learned how to ride a bike, you didn't start off riding a bike right away. No one just took off the training wheels. Well, maybe for some, but most people they might have had training wheels, and if they didn't have the training wheels, they still had someone to kind of help guide them and get them to that point, right? But you don't stop learning how to ride. You learn how to get your balance, you learn how to ride straight, and then you got to learn how to turn, right? And so having that feedback, having someone help you with that, is great. And then sometimes from those mistakes, we learn, right, from those failures. And then one thing that I would say that's important to do as you're having a growth mindset is thinking about ways on how you can reward yourself, because it's great when you're able to learn something new, but then it's also great if you're able to reward yourself. And the rewards don't have to be necessarily big, huge rewards, but sometimes there can be something as small as, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to eat my one favorite dessert. I'm going to, have that special cappuccino at the end of this because I did that. Or I'm going to take a break, or I'm going to call a friend to celebrate my wins. So making sure we take enough time to reward ourselves. And as women, a lot of times we're great at giving that feedback or rewarding somebody else, but we don't necessarily invest that in ourselves as often. So whether you're learning and getting a new degree, or you're learning a brand new application on the computer for work, um, reward yourself. and celebrate those wins because that's going to keep you encouraged to keep learning. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to see if there's any feedback or thoughts about growth mindset because now all of you all are now masters of growth mindset now. So I like to kind of hear, what did you thought of the topic today? And, you know, if there's something that you're learning, share. If you're learning something, whether that's something that is just for personal or something related to work, and anything that you've learned from growth mindset that you would take with you. So we'll get started with Elizabeth.
Well, one thing that I still struggle with, I feel like I'm using a fixed mindset right now, but I guess how do you deal with people who have a fixed mindset?
Mm,
Because I can have a growth mindset, but if everyone around me has a fixed mindset, it
very,
often
very
becomes
good.
one of becomes more of a struggle.
Yeah, yeah. So here's a couple things, and just to kind of keep in mind, because sometimes you're not gonna change them, right? But what you can do is maybe um, hear what they're saying. You don't have to necessarily agree, but hear what they're saying. And I guess, maybe Elizabeth, give an example because I know sometimes these would be different scenarios for people. Is it that someone that you're working with and they're not willing to learn something, or
I mean, I feel I have encountered. I mean, I myself have a fixed mindset at times, but I every day I encounter people with fixed mindsets that say, "Oh, I can't do that," or it's you know above my pay grade, kind of that I hear um,
yeah,
use that kind of in the workplace.
gotcha.
Um,
That's a good one. It's above my pay grade. I love that one as an example. And so are you leading these people, or are these just people who are peers?
I mean, I'm on a team with them. I'm working with them,
Hmm.
so I don't. I mean, I'm leading them, but I'm not their like formal leader. If that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
I got you. More indirect um,
Correct. Yes.
leadership. Yeah, and sometimes it does start with ourselves. If we're, and I know that's simple, but first it starts with ourselves as far as are we set an example of growth mindset. Sometimes it's having a conversation with them to ask them why do they feel that way, right? Because sometimes people aren't heard, but maybe understanding um, why do they feel that way, that they can't or that they won't, and then still providing, well, the solution of if we do A, it's not just so much a benefit for the company, but how it can benefit you. And what I found in some of those same scenarios in some of my other past work experiences, that a lot of times what people don't understand is the why of a lot of things that are happening. And we used to call this one term called WIFM. Have you ever heard of that? WIFM?
I feel like I have. I
Okay,
don't recall.
don't worry
I
about it.
cannot recall it yet.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. That's all right. WIFM stands for What's in It for Me. So a lot of times when there's change for organization or there's a task that's being asked, a lot of times people would push back. And a lot of times they will go into, well, what's in it for me? And so when we were faced in a lot of those type of changes, I won't just say organizational changes, which is changes, it forced us to think, and it forced me to think in those times when I have to give a directive, or, we're on a project, how can I drill it down enough for them to understand what's in it for them. If it's improving this process, can help us save time. Not only just save the company time, but how can that save us time? Or if there's something that may be related to what we're not spending enough time on, or if that's going to allow us to get some additional resources. So sometimes redirecting some of that fixed mindset, but really listening to what they have to say and the concerns, and how do we flip it, or not just flip it, but how do we provide them a with them, for what's in it for them, or why they'll do it. And then sometimes is once they do it, and giving them an opportunity, that a lot of times people are great at bringing problems, but then they never bring a solution to the table. And so when more people who are able to do that, um, they tend to get recognized a little bit more. They tend to get promoted a little bit more, or get some other opportunities. And so I, I know that's like boiling an ocean, what I just gave you, Elizabeth. But
Yeah.
does anybody else have any suggestions for Elizabeth for facing those type of personalities, those fixed mindset personalities? I'm sure we've all dealt with them.
I, I run into the same thing, and I either end up rolling with it, or other days just continuing on my path toward trying to fix whatever it is that needs to be fixed and be part of the team, but keep working toward the goal of not fitting into the mediocrity, I guess would be, if that makes sense. It made sense in my head when I first started.
It's
um,
it's no, that is good. It's kind of like you don't have to necessarily become a part of the negativity of it, right? You can acknowledge what they're saying, but don't get caught up, um, so that you're not pursuing the ultimate goal, what needs to be
yeah.
done.
And
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, I fall into the same mindset, and at least I like to call it my once a month. Can we just keep moving forward?
Yeah,
And
because it can get everybody stuck in a
yeah,
space, right?
and it's frustrating. I totally understand where Elizabeth's coming from. It's just like,
Mm.
yes, there's problems. Yes, they've been around for years and years and years, but we gotta, you
We got to
can't
move
just
forward.
sit there. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Good. I
no,
think.
that didn't help at all, but we're not
No,
alone.
it helps. Yes, it does help, and I think it's you got to keep moving forward. That I have to tell myself that daily.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's not so much about the setback as it is the comeback, right? And so, like I said, everyone faces difficulty or hardship, and a lot of times it's not if, it's when, right? But those who have, again, that type of mindset that, yep, this is tough, but I still see what they would say, the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And it's not a train. And we can work towards it, and get there together. And sometimes you have to be that. We had a conversation about this, how to lead without the title, right? Sometimes we're in those positions where we may not be the supervisor or the manager or the executive, but you influence a team a lot, right? And our mindset can impact others, just like their negative um, mindset can impact us, so can positive as well. So I know we're at 101. So I do appreciate everyone who was able to jump on today. Hopefully, you got a little something out of it, whether through our conversation or with the videos. We will look into rescheduling that conversation on your career soon. So be on the lookout for that information once we get that date set up. We do have a workshop later this week on Thursday, our Powerful Women's Group conversation. We are going to talk about the generational differences in the workplace. We're at a unique dynamic right now where there could be anywhere from 4 to 5 different generations in a workplace. So it's, how do we understand those things and how we bring out the best of that and work together to get to that common goal? So thank you for jumping on. I hope that you have a fantastic Tuesday and looking forward to seeing you on some upcoming workshops. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.